I'm going to do a report on the popularity of different Linux distributions. And so I'm going to start by opening LibreWriter. This time I'm just going to go here. So we have LibreOffice, LibreDraw, LibreImpress, which is like PowerPoint if you know what that is. So let's just open LibreOffice here. And let's do new text document. So this is LibreOffice Writer here. Now, we installed the MS Core fonts before, so if you click on the little font drop down, you see that we have Impact available and Arial Black, and most of the standard Microsoft fonts are in here. So you can definitely use those. Times New Roman. Or you can just use the built-in ones. Generally, I like to pick if I'm worried about compatibility, I generally try to pick fonts that I know are going to be available to Microsoft users. But I'm also going to use the default styles here, so it's a wash. So let's go for the title, and title of our document will be popularity of different distros. And then the way headings work is a lot of people they think that they should pick the heading that looks right, and so they choose their heading level by size and whether it's bolded and so on. And a level 1 heading always looks too big, so they never use a level 1 heading. They usually start with like a heading 3 or a heading 4 or so on. And that's not what you should do. So what you should do is you should always have one heading 1 at the top, and then if you need subheadings, you go to heading 2, and if you need subheadings, you go to heading 3. So heading is a content marker. You mark that a piece of content in the document has a certain function, has a purpose, and then the appearance of that is completely independent from its function. So you can define how you want a heading 1 to look by changing the template for how this thing gets styled. And same thing with a heading 2, heading 3, and so on. So heading 1 is always going to be the top level header of a document. A heading 2 will always be a first level subheader under a heading 1, and so on. And if you follow that, then when you go to port your document to other, other media, like for example, if you want it to be screen reader accessible so that a blind user can use a text-to-speech program to read your document for you, the text-to-speech program is actually smart enough to understand how the heading structure of the document splits it into different chunks. And the user who's using a text-to-speech reader can actually navigate through the document by using that header structure. So you can actually skip from a heading 1 to the heading 2 under it, and then the next heading 2, next heading 2, next heading 2. If you see a heading 2 that sounds interesting to you, you can look at the heading 3s underneath that, and so on. So use the proper document structure and your document will be screen reader accessible, and you can also export it into other formats where the structure is useful. Whereas if you just pick headings based on how they look, then your document will not be structured correctly. So we're going to have a heading 1 at the top, and then we're going to do desktop statistics for Linux distros. And then I'm going to have some text here. So actually, let me take a look. Okay. Most popular Linux distributions, over 600. According to truelist.com, truelist. So it automatically converts that to a link, which is useful. And then put a comma there. Uh, currently around 600 different. Okay. Actually, it says 600 active, 500 in active development. Most commonly used are, yeah. Interestingly, Mint wasn't on the list, even though it's listed here. Kali wasn't on the list. Okay. Anyways, so I want to get my graph. So let me go over here. I'm going to click on the chart, Control C to copy. Then I'm going to move to my document and paste it. Now, one thing that's a little obscure is that usually when you paste something, it floats. So this is like a figure, and it floats over the document, and the text sort of gets wrapped around it. And sometimes that's what you want. So like, that's not what it's doing here, though. So what it's doing here is, if you look at anchor, it's anchored to character, which means that if the character this is anchored to moves, then this thing moves as well. The bottom line, though, is if I want to type something after here, you have to click after it. And then if this isn't doing what you want, you might want to change the anchor to anchor as character. And now this thing is just like this piece of text here. It's in line with the rest of the text. And like if you hit a carriage return, it moves. This thing, for all intents and purposes, is just a big character in this text stream. And so it's easy to move around, but the text doesn't wrap around it. So it depends on what you want. I usually find this the easiest thing to work with for simple reports, because you can just like click after it and hit return and start typing. So we see that Ubuntu is the most popular distro, and Debian is number 2. And then you can also put a bulleted list here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so we want this bulleted list here. And so Ubuntu's most popular distribution, Debian, is number 2. And then we're going to add some notes. So what was the actual number here? Here it is. Okay, so Ubuntu had 33.9%. And Debian, 16%. And CentOS, so 9.3%. Yeah. And then all the rest of the distros. Okay, so some bulleted points. And then what do I want to do? Let's go ahead. I had, that's my top level header. So I'm going to have an H2 under there for introduction. And then this is going to be analysis. And then we're going to do conclusions. And that will be my document. Okay, so introduction is um, and then let's do another bulleted list here. And then factors to consider. So security, let's see what we have here. Does this look good? 6 important factors to consider: usage, what tasks you want to use it for, hardware requirements, software support, stability. Okay, that looks good. All right, so we're going to do bold usage dash, and then the purpose of the machine is important. For example, Linux is very popular. Especially if you were going to set a machine up in a server room and then remote into it, you wouldn't really want to have a lot of spare applications on it. You'd want to just install whatever software you need to run a web server and keep everything else off of there. And then hardware requirements. Let's actually see. I don't actually want to write a whole report here. So Linux is lightweight. Some distros are more lightweight than others, particularly ones that will run on really low-end hardware like Raspberry Pis. So I'm just going to say some distros are lighter weight than others. For example, and then let's say software support. And, close enough. Stability. distributions. And then documentation and community. And then last one, previous experience with Linux. Okay. Okay, so that's enough for me. So intro and then analysis, we have the data, and then for conclusions, we're going to say Ubuntu or Debian are both good choices for your first Linux daily driver. They have most of the tools you need out of the box. The software, distribution, mechanisms, it's called tools. Tools are pretty easy to use. There are large third-party and okay. So that's a report. Tells me it's 409 words. So if I had to write 500 words on Linux distributions, I would find another 100 words to add, but no minimum length here. Documents properly structured in terms of headers. There's a header 1 at the top. There's header 2s under it, and 3 header 2s on the same level. So now, let's go ahead and save the document. And I'm going to, if you just go to save, the first time you save it, it's going to pop up this dialog. And by default, there's a documents folder under my user folder. I'm going to click the new folder icon here. And I'm going to save this into a folder called LibreOffice LibreOffice Lab. And inside LibreOffice Lab, by default, I'm going to save it as an open document format text document. And I'm going to name it, let's name it Linux distro popularity. And it will have an automatic ODF, should have an automatic ODF extension on it, and it does. Oh, sorry, ODT, okay, for, yeah, open doc text. Now, this is fine for our class, but I want you to also save your documents, get in the habit of saving your documents in Microsoft Word docx format. Because most of your CIS instructors will know how to take an ODT file and open it, but most of your other professors probably will not. So also be sure to, when you're done, when you really want to save this in a format you can send to your professor, do save as, and then hit this drop down. You want Microsoft Word docx format. So that's an open document format based on Microsoft Word documents. And then you can leave it with the same name and save it. It says, document may contain formatting or content that cannot be saved in the currently selected file format. But we're going to use that Word format anyhow, because if you can't save the thing in Word format and your professor tries to open it in Word format, and what they see is not going to be what you intended them to see. So this way, if you save it in docx format, you can actually see what's there, and you can make sure that all the important stuff that you want your professor to see is there as well. Okay, now we're also going to switch over to our spreadsheet, and we're going to save this as Documents, LibreOffice Lab. This is going to be, actually, distro data. And once again, open document format sheet, ODS. So we're going to save that as distrodata.ods. And we're also going to save as, if we wanted to send this to our professor, we would also save it as, or just save it as XLSX. So Excel, save, and then we're going to use that format. Okay, so here we have our XLSX file as well as our docx file. And now we're going to make the presentation based on this.